Hi everyone, how are you doing? So today I thought we would do a little arts and crafts project, but it's going to go over 2 days. So I'll do the first one today, and then the second video, so the end of the project, will be on Thursday. Excuse me. So that will allow you time, if you're going to do some painting, it'll allow you time to do some painting, and it'll allow you time to maybe get all the bits and pieces together for Thursday if you haven't got them around the house. So what I've tried to do is find things that are around the house and use them in a way that it's going to be a fun activity. So what I have got is, if you've got some felt tip pens, fabulous. You can do all of this with felt tip pens. You don't need paint at all. However, I have chosen to do painting today. So I have mixed up a nice pink paint and a brown paint. Now I wonder what we might be using pink or brown for. Interesting. I'm going to let you know. So the other thing you're going to need are toilet roll tubes. You might need, if you want to, you might need some coloured card or some paper that you've coloured in that's cut roughly in a very wide triangle shape with a circular base. All right, so something that looks like this, because what we're going to do, your parents or your grown-ups that you're with may know how to do this better than I do, so I'm not very good at these. But what you need to be able to do is make a cone. Okay, and the last thing you're going to need is a box. So I have an old box that I'm not going to use anymore, and that's what I'm going to use to make this with. Now, on top of that, you're going to need some sellotape. So for Thursday, when we put this together, and you'll see what it is in a minute, you're definitely going to need some sellotape or something of a sticky nature. So you may have some masking tape, you may have double-sided sticky tape, something of a sticky nature. Now, there is a possibility to make this even without using that, because you might not want to do what I'm going to do on the top. So let's get started. Now, I have made a quick start to this so that you don't have the boring job of having to watch it. What we're going to do is make a castle and some little people to go inside the castle, because I thought that's a nice way of us being able to play at home. If you've got brothers and sisters, or playing with your parents or your grown-up, whoever you're with, I thought this might be a nice way of being able to have a bit of play. Now, so what we're going to do, so with the box, on one side of my box, I've drawn two shapes that look remarkably like windows. One end, I've cut a shape that looks like that, so a bit like the top of a shield, or maybe a pentagon shape. Line across the bottom, side, 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 and side, available, so that you can use it as a nice little drawbridge. And then the other end, I've cut it in a shape that looks like this. So one side I'm going to do a princess castle, and the other side I'm going to do a knight's castle. And we're going to see if we can make two different castles as we go. So I'm going to do paint on one side in one colour, paint on the other side in another. So I've mixed the paints up. So obviously the knight's castle is going to be brown and the princess castle is going to be pink. And I'm just going to do a straight line down through the middle. Now the other thing castles need are turrets. So I've got toilet roll tubes for those. So those you can either leave plain, or you can colour them in the same colour as the side of the castle you're going to make. And then that's what your little cone is for. So you can make a little cone shape, and that just sits on top as the top of the turret of the castle. That would be for the princess one, if you're making the princess side. If you're making the knight's castle side, I've got a toilet roll, and all I've done is I've cut little rectangular or square shapes at the top, and I've drawn some little windows in. Now these I'm going to paint the same colour as the colour on the side of the knight's castle. So those are all the bits and pieces that you need to make the castle. To make the people that go inside, guess what? You need another toilet roll tube. So you need a toilet roll tube. That is literally it. We're not doing any fandangled arms and legs. If you want to, you absolutely can do. I'm not very good at making those sorts of things. So what I've done is I've just painted, I don't know whether you can see the colour very clearly, but I've just painted the top half of it pink. That's going to be the part where we have the head and the face. And then the bottom half, we're going to collect anything that you might have around the house that your grown-up says you're allowed to use. So remember, when you're doing any of these activities, you must always ask your grown-up's permission first. So anything you might have around the house that your grown-up says you can use. So I've found some little odd bits of material. So I'm going to use those on Thursday to make some clothes for the characters that are going to go inside the castle. So to start with, let's get painting. So I am going to paint the knight's side of the castle. and I'm going to paint that nice and brown. Now this is where I said if you haven't got paint, it doesn't matter, because you actually don't need to paint your castle at all. What you can do is just leave the box as it is, or you can colour it in, or you could even make things out of paper and stick them on if you've got some glue and things like that that you might like to use. Now, one thing I am going to think about whilst I've started this, the princess side of the castle is going to be pink. Now, pink is a lighter colour than brown, isn't it? So I might need to do my pink line of paint first so that my brown can go over the top of it. Otherwise, I'm going to be trying to paint a light pink on top of a dark brown, and that is not going to go very well. It's going to look like a bit of a horrible colour. So I'm actually going to make the line for my pink side first. Now, the annoying thing for me is that I have not got a big enough paintbrush for this. So I've just got a tiny, tiny paintbrush. And I'm going to try and paint this side. And I'm not going to make you sit through the whole of me painting it, because again, we don't want boring videos, do we? So that would be very boring, but I'm just going to try and give you a rough idea so that you know what to do, and so that you can either prepare it or find the bits and pieces you need for Thursday when we finish this off and look at the final product. Now, the reason I'm doing it today and Thursday is if you're painting it, we're obviously going to need time for all the bits of the castle to dry first before we can start to stick it and make it all one piece. Otherwise, the sellotape or whatever it is that you're using isn't going to stick to wet paint. Now, that isn't rocket science, but it is something that I thought of the other day when I did it the wrong way round, and I tried to stick something to wet paint and it just didn't work. So I'm going to do my little pink line like that, and then I know roughly where my brown line needs to go, and I can mix the two lines together. So I'm going to do that all the way round. Now let me show you what I mean, and I will finish this off camera so you don't have to look at it. So one side of my castle is going to be pink. That's the side that's got the lovely little windowed entrance, and the other side of my castle is going to be brown. That's the side that's got the knight's entrance, and then you've got this side of the castle with the drawbridge, and that can be whatever colour you like. I'm going to paint my drawbridge pink or gold, maybe gold, just so it's a different entranceway. So I will finish that off so that you don't have to look at that. But that, when you come back on Thursday, that will be finished, painted and dry, so you'll see what it looks like. The turrets of the castle, I'm going to cut one of those so you can see what I mean when I do it. Make sure they're both the same size. So all I'm doing, very carefully, if you're using sharp scissors, again, you might need to ask a grown-up to help you. So I am cutting some little lines, folding it back, and then cutting it off like that. Okay, and then you do that equally. Equally means the same, so the same distance all the way round until you've made your little turrets. Okay, so you've got two, and I'm going to make the last one in this side like that. I'm going to leave this one without any windows. I haven't drawn windows on this one. There we go. Now I want this to look the same colour as my castle. So what I was saying to you earlier was that you can paint these ones as well, so that then when you stick them on your castle, they will all be the same colour. Now obviously, if you're deciding to use paint, make sure you have asked your grown-up first, but you also need to make sure that you've either got some old clothes on or you've got an apron on, so that if you do get a bit painty, it doesn't ruin your clothes. And you also need to make sure that whatever surface you're working on is covered with something. So I've got an old newspaper that I've put down on my surface. So I make sure that when I'm painting, it only goes where I want it to go. And if I happen to have a bit of an accident where it drips, it doesn't matter, because it's just going to go onto the newspaper. or it's going to go onto my apron, or it's going to go onto my old clothes. Now you can choose whether you want to paint the inside of this or not. I'm going to paint just the insides of the little turrets, the bit that stick up at the top. That's the only bits I'm going to paint. The rest of it I'm going to leave as the colour of the toilet roll. So you'll find it's quite easy to do. I just stick my fingers in the bottom like that, and then it doesn't get too painty. If you're holding the paint or the bit that you've just painted, you're going to get it all over your fingers, and that might become a little bit annoying. So let's have a look. There we go. So there's one done. So I've painted that, and I've just painted the little turrets at the top, but I haven't painted the inside of this one. So there's that painted. Now the ones that are going inside or on top of the turrets that are going on top of the princess side, you can choose again whether you want to paint them or not. I am going to paint mine. So I'm going to use the same colour as I'm using on the princess side of the castle, and I'm going to paint my toilet roll tubes, which are going to be my turrets, in exactly the same colour, because then when I stick it all together, it'll all match. I don't think it matters quite so much on the knight side, but I think maybe on the princess side, if you haven't got any paint, you could always cover it in some pretty paper, or maybe if you've got any leftover wrapping paper, you could paint that. You could stick some leftover wrapping paper on. That would work just as well. So we're just going to paint these up, and then once they're painted, we need to put them somewhere nice and safe where they're not going to make a mess, so that they can dry. And then when we come back on, oh, I just got on the laptop. Oopsie. So when we come back on Thursday, we can put this all together and we can have a bit of a play with the characters. So I'm nearly there with the princess turret. Now remember, we've made some little bits to go on the top, haven't we? Some little, what you would maybe call a steeple. It's a bit of a strange word, isn't it? But it's the pointy bit that's on top of the tower. You might see them on top of churches. They have spires on the top of theirs, or steeples that go right the way up to the top. They're the very top pointy bit. So there we have it. There is the turret for the princess side of the castle. Just making sure I've got pink on all of it. Obviously, it doesn't matter what colour you choose to use. It's entirely up to you. This is your creation. I'm just giving you an idea. You can choose what to do with it. So the next thing I'm going to do is show you how I made my little cone, so that we've got that to stick on top of the princess turrets if we need it. So this was the shape I showed you I cut out. So it's a little bit wider than a 90-degree angle. We all know a 90-degree angle is like the corner of a table or the corner of a square. So this is a little bit wider than that, and it's like the wide part of a triangle, and then the bottom bit of it is curved. Now I am going to need some sellotape for this, so I'm going to get some sellotape. Dropped it on the floor. I'm going to leave it there and pick it up later. Now let's put the sellotape somewhere, because I don't need it quite yet, and we're going to roll this round. So what you have to do, the two straight edges here, you want them to meet, and when they meet you're going to stick them down. That's the bit that's going to make the pointy bit. So I'm pulling in the top edges of the card. It is a bit fiddly, and if you've got card to do it with, it's even more fiddly. There we go. So you pull in the top edges. Now the only thing you do need to do is make sure you've checked that this has got a wide enough circumference. So that's the circular bit on the bottom. Is it wide enough? So we've made a cone, haven't we? So is it wide enough at the bottom to sit on top of the toilet roll that you're going to use as your turret on your castle? This is wide enough. So I'm just going to switch hands very quickly. Pull that a little bit tighter, because we want, really what we'd like is a point. And then all I'm going to do, where the two bits of card join, these two bits here, is I'm going to stick the sellotape over the top of the edges and press it down nice and firm, because that way hopefully it will stick together. Now you've got that long bit on the end, you can cut it off. I'm just going to tuck mine up inside, and you've got the bit on the top. If you put your fingers right inside and press down where the sellotape joins, it'll hold those bits of card together even better. I'm going to cut them off at the top because I don't really want a sticky up bit of sellotape on the top of my castle. And then fold around that last little bit. There we go. So that's your little turrets or your little spires that go on top. So I've now got, because I'm doing a princess castle on one half and I'm doing a knight's castle on the other half, I want 4 turrets, but I'm going to split those in half. So I need 2 princess ones and I need 2 knights ones. So I've got 2 of these to go on top of my pink toilet rolls. And I've got, I don't need a top on this one. So I've cut 2 of these and they're going on top of my knight's castle. And then I've shown you how to cut up the box. Now what you need to do is gather together all your bits and pieces that you might have available. Make sure you've asked your grown-up first. And those are all the bits and pieces that we will use on Thursday to put this all together, and you'll see what it looks like. If you want to get going before Thursday, you're more than welcome to, obviously. But what you could start to do is you could start to make some little faces on your toilet rolls that are going to be your people. And if you want to put some clothes on them, all you need to do is get some clothes that you can put around the bottom bit of the tube and just stick them on so that they're wearing just a little outfit on the bottom half. Okay, and that's a nice little activity that you could get on with. When the paint's dry, you can probably draw on it with felt tip pens. If you're not using paint, perfect. You can go ahead and decorate them however you like. So I will see you on Thursday once all of this is dry, and we will put our little princess and knight castle together and we can have a bit of a play. All right, good luck. Have fun. Make sure you've asked your grown-up first. Take care. Look out for the staff video tomorrow. It's a good one. Most staff we've ever had yet, so keep an eye out. Take care. See you soon.